Okay, thanks, Peggy. Good evening, friends and brethren. Welcome to the presentation number 15 of the Mystery Babylon series. And we are doing still introduction and foundation and the symbology and theology of Babylon. So we are going through Nimrod and the cities that he built, and Nineveh. Nineveh is the next city I want to start the discussion. And Bible calls it a bloody city. And I want to take time to introduce and and do the portions of Nahum, as the word is minor prophet's name is pronounced, and we will do parts of first chapter, and next week uh, I would do the full dive into remaining portions of Nahum 1. So let's launch. Nineveh, a bloody city. It is also called a great city by Jonah. And then we will take up next major topic, Semyon and theology of beast next. But we will cover Nineveh, and then after Nineveh, I will take up Babylon. So with Babylon, the physical Babylon city, we would be completing the cities. At this time, I don't know if I should touch other cities like Sodom as a city and Jericho as another city. Those are important cities as well, which mimic or which kind of shadow the mystery Babylon that we would encounter in chapter 17 and 18 of Revelation. So we're still in kind of planning stage, and we will see how we would go ahead. And today I will introduce Nineveh. Nineveh is a capital city of the mega empire Assyria. And most people probably heard, and most of you in Zoom room, some of you are very well aware of the details of Assyrian Empire, and then its capital is Nineveh. So primary scriptures, Nahum, and the standard diagram, Mystery Babylon, is here, and various artifacts. And Mystery Babylon is also a city. A city. That's why we are studying the motif of city, the reoccurring phenomenon and concept, a city. So Revelation 17, verse 18 tells us the woman which you saw was that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. It's an interesting thing. Tonight, as we discuss uh, Nineveh in Nahum's chapter 3, we actually see all these things occur. They're all foreshadowing the mystery Babylon, because Nineveh was also a great city according to uh, Jonah, Jonah chapter 1. And it is called great city, and it reigns over the kings of the earth in Nahum chapter 3. So very interesting parallelism. So some of these concepts God is already built in the ancient cities. Revelation 16 verse 19, and the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So there's a great wrath of God is unleashed against mystery Babylon. We also see that God's great wrath and fierceness of his wrath is unleashed against Nineveh also. So it's a very interesting. There are lots of parallelisms between Mystery Babylon and Nineveh. So Nineveh is a very good case study to understand uh, the Mystery Babylon. And some of these minor prophets would throw lots of light on the Mystery Babylon in their own unique ways. So it's very good that we are studying from scratch and building and trying to understand the Mystery Babylon from these shadow cities. The shadow cities tell us several features and aspects, and every shadow evil city is a script. A script. All the cities share some common feature, that is revolt and rebellion against God. But every evil city adds its own specific evil in its character and in its modus operandi, the way it operates and thinks and deals with other cities is interesting. So it changes from city to city, and all these cities, when we combine together, we have a greater and deeper insight for the mystery Babylon. So this is all preparation for chapter 17 and 18 of book of Revelation. So we should be patient in our study of Nineveh. So Nahum 1, some people say Nahum, that's also fine. The Hebrew pronunciation is completely different. Uh, Most people would pronounce Nahum or Nahum. So the dictionary is telling me it should be pronounced Nahum. So I stick with Nahum, but feel free to call whatever you want. Nahum is a minor prophet. He's a contemporary of Isaiah and Zephaniah and Jonah. Jonah may be slightly off out. He may not be real contemporary, but Jonah also deals with the same city, Nineveh. So Nineveh is capital city of Assyria, and Assyria is the superpower of their day. It's a mighty mega empire, and it is broadly dated between 800 BC to 600 BC, so around 200 plus years, and it reaches its peak under few emperors, and then it slowly goes down, and then that is the end of the story. The whole empire is done, and Nineveh city, with all its glory, with all its excellence, and it is completely erased from the face of the earth, completely erased. It meets its final judgment as every other evil city in the hands of God. So when we talk about Nineveh as a capital city of Assyria, we have lots of information coming from different sources. First is historical record. Historians, uh, Greek, other ancient historians visited Assyria, and they have their recordings, and that those works give us some clues, some hints, some information if you are willing to trust historians. So we get that information. And then archaeological findings, especially after 1800s, they discovered the actual site of Nineveh. And then they excavated and they found enormous amount of information and artifacts recovered, and most of them ended in either British Museum or in France, and some probably to Germany. So the whole artifacts moved to different museums, but we have richness of information even from archaeological excavations. And their language was somewhat a primitive Akkadian, and then also their script is cuneiform. Cuneiform is kind of letters, but mostly a diagram. It's a miniature picture plus alphabets. It's a very peculiar script, and somebody from one of the archaeologists actually have a breakthrough in reading and understanding the cuneiform, and then boom, that opened lots of gates of information. Once you are able to read these tablets that are written in cuneiform Akkadian language, that also gave wealth of information about Nineveh as capital city of Assyrian empire. So we have these narratives from historians, from archaeological, and then here Nahum gives another narrative, and this narrative is from God. And this is not a historical narrative nor archaeological narrative, because historians and archaeologists, they just focus on physical facts and physical things that they can see with their physical eyes and hear from them. But this is not necessarily a historical archaeological document. When the prophets write, especially when they see the vision and faithfully record, this is God's narrative, how God views at this city called Nineveh. So Nineveh is how the narrative we are seeing in next three chapters, Nahum 1, 2, 3. One is introduction and how what God thinks about this city, and two is segueing and preparing for the judgment, and chapter 3 is the unleashment of the judgment of God. The judgment of Nineveh is very similar to judgment of Babylon. For Babylon, God said, give her double to what she has done. We see kind of similar pattern, even though Nahum does not say the word double, but it is a full recompense, full avenging from God's side. So God unleashes equal or little bit more than what Nineveh did. So Nineveh is capital of Assyrian Empire. Assyrian Empire and Nineveh, they are superpower of their day. For at least 200 plus years, they are unchallenged power. As we go through different superpowers of their day throughout the history, all the superpowers have some things in common. They have enormous military buildup and enormous grabbing of other weaker cities. Either they grab their wealth or grab their men and women to enslave or grab their food and other natural resources. So this is what every superpower does when it becomes superpower. Superpowers would not become superpower for nothing. There is a deep motivation, and every superpower has its life cycle. It raises to its heights and then it collapses. Some superpowers drastically collapse. Some superpowers, like Rome, they gradually diminish over many years. And Babylon, the physical Babylon, met its end just in few hours. In one night, it was struck down. And Nineveh is also very similar. It kind of declines for a few years, but its devastating death blow happens in very short time. So that is brief history, and 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 every superpower has different ways of grabbing others resources. So here Nineveh has a very unique feature. They are known for terrorizing other nations. They are so specialized in in their methodologies, the way they conquer, the way they treat the enslaved enemy nations, and the way they treat their kings and their emperors is very unique. They just send shivers down the spine of every nation around them. They are known for their ruthlessness and terror. And this methodology actually helped them so that they don't need to fight much because you could terrorize weaker nations and weaker people or weaker cities. There is very less resistance. Readily yield People will readily yield and not fight, so that they will be taken as slaves. So Nineveh needs lots of slaves to build their mega projects. In fact, they grow very little food compared to the size of the people inside Nineveh. So they need slave people, and they need also food that is grown outside of Nineveh by other smaller and weaker cities, so that they constantly grab food from other areas. So they are sustained by their plundering and by their thievery. So this is a very characteristic of Nimrod and land of Shinar. So some of the characteristics of Nimrod are also continued here to Nineveh. So Nineveh is also known for horse and chariots. So, like risen, we have briefly discussed. Risen means bridle and bit. So that was a hint by God when He calls Rezin a great city, which is, by the way, built by Nimrod. But Nineveh is also built by Nimrod, but they perfected the horse and the chariot. Their chariots are very, very notorious, and they have big wheels and wheel within a wheel and wheel within a wheel. From there, some blades would protrude outside the wheels on both sides, and also the wheel within wheel, smaller wheels that are attached, they have a sharp blade edges. So what they do is, when they invade a city, people would be fleeing, and they would run their chariots on fleeing people, on live human beings, and then these blades would cut and chop whoever come in contact with the wheels, and they will be chopped, and we see the parts, human body parts, are flying all over, and there is a blood being spilled and sprayed everywhere. So that is a terrorizing scene and terrorizing vision. And then on top of that, they have some shields that would shine in the sunlight, and that would blur the vision of the victims. So it's a massive uh, Assyrian army, the Nineveh, would come in large numbers with these chariots, and they have loud noise and voices, and this is a terrorizing sight. It's a nightmare, and Israelites would wail and weep if they see Assyrian uh, chariots from a distance, because they know what is about to happen. They would cry aloud and they would weep, because Israel is greatly weakened by then, when Assyrians came and took the northern 10 tribes out. And they're also known for killing the other kings, captured kings, and they behead, and they take the heads of their enemies, and kind of uh, how to put it, it's like a decorative item. So they place all the heads of captured people who fought, soldiers and the leaders of the country. They post them around the country's borders all these heads as a warning, never think even of rebelling, just yield to our power. And they also take them, some of the heads, to especially king's heads, into the palace of Nineveh, and they're like the decorative art objects. It was told the emperor and the queen, when they were enjoying the wine in an evening, and they were looking at the beautiful garden they have put, and the garden has uh, beautiful trees. From the trees here and there, we see the the heads of the kings that were slain by Assyrian army. They are like souvenirs, and both queen and king, the emperor and empress, would look at these heads, and they bloat. They 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 are so joyful that they could subdue, they could terrorize, and they can conquer and crush and enslave. So normal human being, when you look at a decapitated head of a man, you would be terrorized. You should be horrified at that thing. But here you can see the numbness and bloodthirstiness in order to accomplish their power and their high status. The Assyrians were numbed down and dumbed down. And sure, as you might have guessed, there are heavy demonic activity. So why I'm saying all these background material is God unleashes his judgment against Nineveh in very similar terms. He talks about the chariots and horses, the ruthlessness. He mentions in third chapter, and in very first chapter onwards, he does mention the cruelty of Nineveh. So he meets the cruelty of Nineveh with double cruelty, at least equal cruelty, because he's an avenger. He's a righteous God. And here the timing of the story is the northern 10 tribes were already taken captive by Assyrian army, and then we are left with southern Judah, and southern Judah was also affected, at least the peripheral towns and uh, inhabitants were already taking the heat and brunt of Assyrian incursions, and the whole Jerusalem and Judea is gripped with fear, and they were already being affected, and they are kind of, the whole nation was already bleeding because of the Assyrian incursions. So here at this time, God comes and bring gives a vision to Nahum that he is going to bring a judgment against this evil, wicked, bloodthirsty city. And here we will go through a little narrative of God, where God is coming from. And then I want to play a video today because there's so much archaeological and historical evidence. I don't want to reinvent the whole narrative. Somebody did an excellent study and research, and he used AI to generate video and audio, and I'm in mostly in line with what they say for the physical, historical, archaeological record. So if we are able to play the video, I will play the video. Otherwise, I will continue chapter one. But let me start few verses with this background, what God is saying, why God is saying, and who this city is, and who God is, why God has to judge, and why and how God judges a nation, a city, a family, a people. God is righteous God. He avenges the blood. He avenges the blood. Wherever there is a bloodthirsty leaders, and bloodthirsty people. Assyria, everybody seems to be bloodthirsty. That's a strange thing. And then there you go. God says your sins are so gross and so violent and so cruel, and they reached unto me. They reached heaven. It's a metaphorical way of saying you are worse people and you are ready for judgment. So this is how God begins. Let's go through a few verses. The burden of Nineveh, that is oracle or utterance, that is the most agreed. Uh, the burden, as King James uses that word, that's also could be burden. So this is a burden on that city because it is under the weight of that burden of God's impending judgment. So you have in Isaiah, you have burden of Egypt and burden of different cities. And the same pattern is followed here, the burden of Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. The book of the vision of, it's written in a book, whatever the vision is shown to prophet Nahum, and the vision of Nahum. Nahum means comfort. Actually, in Hebrew, it is Nahum, Nahum, ha. It's a kof. Nahum, comfort, is a comforting message. Uh, and he's from a region, perhaps Elkoshite. So Elkoshi in Hebrew, God the ensnarer, God the ensnarer. So the names sometimes are interesting and important because they also reveal some information to us. As Bible students, we should not leave any of the opportunities to grasp, get insight. So here, who is God comforting while he is unleashing this judgment against Nineveh? It is Judah. Judah is being stabbed on every side by Assyrians, and they are so downgraded and so discouraged, and they are the only covenanted people left. And then and then God says, don't worry, they are not going to come and overtake you or plunder you. So before they do that, I will bring judgment on this evil, wicked city, Nineveh. So this prophet Nahum was given a vision. So in the vision he sees, and then he records all the material, all the vision that he sees. And vision is both visual information as well as the auditory information, and then it is a dictation. So so he writes it. Another interesting feature, the narrative in Hebrew is very poetic. It's a poetry. The words are put together in a very eloquent way. And also, it's a song in Hebrew. So this is sung by people. This can be sung in Hebrew. I don't know if we can sing it in English, but it's a song, it's a poetry, and it is also a triumph song because our enemy, Judea or Judah's enemy, the Assyrians, the Nineveh, is being judged. Nineveh is being judged. It is like, see, like we have the sole superpower today in the world is USA, and US's capital city is Washington, D.C. So imagine a prophet is being sent by God, and prophet is writes a burden of Washington, D.C. because Washington, D.C. can wage all these terrorizing conquests and then plunder, loot, and bring wealth to it. I'm not saying that Washington, D.C. is doing that, but hypothetically, that's how uh, the prophet would write about the capital city, but he's actually reflecting for the whole United States of America. So this is how the whole nation sometimes is addressed with its capital city. So, what he talks about capital city also equally applies for the entire empire. Verse 2, God is jealous. God is jealous, and the Lord avenges or revenges. The Lord avenges or revenges, and he is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves wrath for his enemies. Now, if you start with chapter 1 and verse 1 and 2, it suddenly it's hard to grasp why God is so angry, why God is so jealous. What does it mean, God being jealous? Why God is furious and he's promising a large scale judgment and vengeance? Why this language? At the beginning, it is not apparent, but God is reacting to some gross evil and some real disproportionate terror, and the wickedness and evil reached its heights in the entire human history. And this kind of Nineveh's terrorizing tactics probably no other superpower ever did. So Nineveh stands alone for its terrorization. We will see more terrorizations in the archaeological and historical evidence, and they will skin live human beings. They will take knife and pull off the skin of a human being while he or she is still alive, and they display the skinned bodies as they will writhe with pain and slowly die. Look at the cruelty. Look at the gross bloodshedness of this city, Nineveh. And no wonder we have verse 2. God is watching. People, because nobody can challenge Nineveh while they are superpower of their day. Nobody can even think or dream of ever attacking or putting a stop to Nineveh. In that situation, if nobody can stop that, the whole world, all the weaker nations, including Judea, the covenanted people of God, are languishing and lamenting. And in this context, God announces the judgment, the fierce and vast judgment of God, because God only can match this power, this earthly power, and because God remembers. And God also comforts Judea, his covenanted people. I am with you. I am going to bring you comfort. That's what the word Nahum means. The prophet's name means comfort. But he is from another place called Elkoshite. He is an Elkoshite. That means God also would ensnare such evil, wicked people. That is called Nineveh in our current context. So let's continue what God says. But God is not willing to do it like at every stroke of evil. At the first sin a nation commits, God is not going to come and strike them with a lightning. But God is here, God is contrasting. Verse 2 should be followed by verse 3, because most people would understand verse 2, because verse 3 helps us who God is and why God does the things that he does. Lord is slow to anger and but great in power, will not at all acquit the wicked. If they are doing this kind of violence, bloodshed, and terror, God will not pronounce them as guiltless. He will surely bring judgment on them. But he is slow and gives sufficient rope and sufficient space for them to repent. But even though they might think they are matchless power and they are the superpower and they can do anything to anybody if they are thinking like that, here is God. He's great in power, or you can say he's greater in power than any of the superpowers and will not at all acquit the wicked. And the Lord has His way. Now his God is being, now a description of God is given to us, how awesome he is. The Lord has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm. So for the ancient people, the thunderstorms are the most dreaded things. When you have lightning, thunders, and winds and blowing, and they were scared to their death. And the whirlwind, the tornado like winds and coming and causing devastations. These are more dreaded phenomenon from nature, and then God is eluding those natural phenomenon to his majesty and to his power to bring judgment. So his way is in the whirlwind. This is all metaphoric language. And in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. The clouds, which are above all, actually, they are dust of his feet. So all the human beings which are under the cloud, below the cloud, are also like dust. Nineveh might think it is greatest and smartest of all the cities of the world, but God is greater, much greater, infinitely greater than Nineveh, and Nineveh and Ninevites happen to be mere dust below his feet. That's what God is describing. But just simply because I have power, I'm not going to go and decimate any city, every city, including superpowers. I will give them sufficient rope for repentance, sufficient space for them to reflect on their evil and perhaps make a U turn. And we are talking about rising of nations and collapsing of nations, rise and fall of nations. This is all called track one. We, as true church, true Christians, we are outside of track one. We are on track two. Sometimes things happen in track one would affect us, and we can also affect track two. But remember, we are in track two essentially if we are fully in Jesus Christ and his teachings. Because we live in heaven, we dwell in heaven, we invest in heaven. So just keep that in back of my mind. And who is Judah? Who is Judea? Judea in this physical story is a covenanted people still left on the face of the earth. The northern tribes are all gone and forgotten. God gave them a divorce. God told them, "You are no longer my people. You are done." The only surviving people that have covenantal relationship with God was Judea. But now that covenant is gone. We are under new covenant. So equivalent of Judea, whenever God talks about Judea, bad things are good things. He's talking about we Christians. Christians are spiritual Jews and spiritual Judea. Just keep these things in mind because God uses lots of illusions here in this. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry and dries up all the rivers. Bashan languishes, and Carmel and the flower of Lebanon languishes. So it's very difficult to parse unless you have a good, wider, broad perspective of Holy Scriptures. And this vocabulary is used consistently by all the prophets, major prophets, minor prophets, and Psalms are also rich with this vocabulary. So we have to unlock some of these code words. So, what my plan is, even if I unlock all of these things, you are not going to remember. So, I will keep on repeating as we go through prophets and psalms. I keep unlocking every time. Every time I unlock a particular code or a semion, uh, I would add more, and that way you get more familiar. As Apostle Peter said, uh, I have to remind you again and again so that it goes well for you spiritually. So repetition is very healthy. So I am gonna repeat these things again and again so that you become super familiar. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry and dries up all the rivers. Now the Nineveh city is surrounded by the waters, a river called Tigris. Tigris River is comes and meets the uh, Nineveh, and it waters all the irrigation systems in Nineveh. It also protects. They dig huge canals. They are almost like rivers on two sides with these artificially made uh, rivers to protect, and other side they have walls. They have huge erected walls, massive, so that enemy cannot come and penetrate, but they can go out and plunder. So it's a well fortified city, that is Nineveh, Nineveh, the capital of a Syrian city. So they boast and they trust on the rivers that protect them. Rivers are also uh, introduce lots of not only security but contribute to the wealth of Nineveh because it produces crop, produces irrigation, and the beautiful massive gardens that they planted, especially the palace and the city, palace of the emperor is attached to a beautiful wide garden, and all of them are watered by this irrigation system and aqueducts that they have constructed. You're going to see that in video if you are able to see the video. So it's very elaborate, and God said He is going to dry up all the rivers. Bashan languishes, and Carmel and the flower of Lebanon languishes. Now, Bashan is most fertile and most uh, coveted place in Israel and Judea. Bashan, we see oaks of Bashan, and we see uh, we also see negative and positive about Bashan. Bashan is most formidable, most fertile, and most well fed and fatty people and fatty animals. That means well built and strong is the area of Bashan. Bashan is rich in natural resources in Israel, and sometimes Israelites would go too proud because of the blessings, and God would say something negative, the beasts of Bashan. But otherwise, God calls and describes Bashan as oaks of Bashan. The oaks of Bashan are well watered and they are huge and humongous, and that shows a good portion, a well fed and vibrant portion of Israel or Judea. In our case, the way we interpret is Bashan is that group of Christians that are strong in their truth, in gospel, and they are healthy and vibrant. That is Bashan. But the Bashan is being languishing. Even Bashan, those Christians, strong and well fed and vibrant Christians, are also kind of languishing. Why? Because of the Nineveh. Nineveh is that spiritual dark power that is affecting Christians. And then Carmel also languishes along with Bashan. Carmel, Carmel is, we have a lot, we can talk a lot about Carmel. Let me, so Carmel is like a mountain, big mountain. On top of that, it always snows. So all bunch of snow is there, and then the snow slowly melts and comes down. This is a Carmel. It's not a single mountain. You have multiple mountains here, and then uh, so you have snow on this, and the snow comes down. It's a pure water that comes down at the foothills, at the bottom, immediately at the foot of the Carmel mountain. There are vineyards, lots of vineyards. All these vineyards are fed continuously from the melting snow, and they produce best grapes, best grapes. And then from the grapes, from through the wine press, they obtain best wine, the best wine known for Carmel. It's a Carmel wine. Everybody loves that wine in Israel, and everybody wants that. Perhaps they are willing to pay extra price or double price. So that's a very precious wine. This is a picture of gospel. The snow and the top of the mountain represents heaven. From heaven, the truth is coming down as a blessing of God, and the truth goes down and goes through the vineyard or vines, that is Christians growing and maturing and bearing fruit, that is grapes. From grapes, you again have more precious, pure wine, that is again truth. Actually, it percolates to the teachers, and teachers would produce more pure truth, new covenant, New Testament truth of Jesus Christ, and they distribute to the people of Israel. And Carmel, Jesus said, "My teachings are new wine. It's a refreshing wine, and it brightens your face. It fills and refreshes your heart and your mind. This is a fresh new wine." That's what it pictures, Carmel. Carmel is you have good teachers and feeding the flock with good teachings of Jesus Christ, that is wine, all coming from heaven. And Jesus is has his hair and head white as wool and white as snow. From his head, this is coming down, and we are fed with true gospel of Jesus Christ. That shows the good standing of some Christians with God, and they are live and they are vibrant. Again, Carmel pictures that. But Carmel is also languishing because of this Babylonian city. The Nineveh is a shadowing of the mystery Babylon as a city. So the mystery Babylon is a real culprit. Even a strong, vibrant Christians, it can reach with its tentacles and jeopardize them. They are languishing. So Bashan languishes and Carmel also languishes. Carmel has another story associated where Elijah confronts prophets of Baal, and where fire comes down and burns all the prophets of Baal, and two battalions of 50 each and one captain were also killed when when the prophet prays to God. So Elijah confrontation of evil, that is also pictured by Carmel. So Carmel is a great battle of truth versus lie, good versus evil in the realm of spirit. That battle must continue. We are learning in Gospel of Luke that Jesus would defeat Satan. There is a battle, spiritual warfare. That warfare is also kind of disturbed when Carmel languishes. So we have Bashan and Carmel, and the flower of Lebanon languishes. Lebanon is a picture of tall trees. The cedars of Lebanon is a recurring theme. Sometimes there are cypress trees of Lebanon. Lebanon is also another way of telling it's a tall, matured trees, and they are well grown, matured Christians are there. They are like seasoned veteran Christians. They knew how to distinguish and discern between good and evil, what is right and what is wrong. They have trained themselves and grown and matured as a strong Christians. That is Lebanon. But Lebanon and its flower is an indicative of the trees, whether the flower is healthy, so the trees are also healthy. In order for trees to produce a good quality flower, they themselves should be healthy. Here, there's an indication of if the flower is kind of languishing and the trees are internally struggling. So they are affected by this mystery Babylon, this city, just like Nineveh is physically affecting Lebanon. See, God is giving us a theological insight and He's writing a script for us. So this script would be rerun again. So at this time, I will stop the presentation and try to run the video.